Good morning, folks. I'm Michael Airgood. I'm the gospel storyteller at Clareton First, Glassport, and Pine Run United Methodist Churches, the Resurrection Circuit. I want to apologize for no videos the last couple weeks. Had some tech problems and some other issues. Thank you much for your patience and understanding. Our sermon today is based on Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 through 13. I grew up as a church kid. My mom was the organist and the financial secretary, so we were in the church building almost every day of the week. Mom had meetings more often than not, and we were told to not interrupt the meeting. But other than that, we had free range of the church, and the church I grew up in was a glorious old building, and we would explore every single nook and cranny. We'd climb over rafters in the attic space over the sanctuary and crawl under the boiler pipes to get to the secondary room back behind it. Mom would practice the organ every morning from 6 to 7, and my sister and I would slide from the top of the back of the sanctuary down to the front under the pews on our bellies. It was a wonderful way to grow up. The church building was my home. But every once in a while, Mom would have to play for a wedding or a funeral at another church in town, and we would need to practice at that church. And it was a totally different experience to be in someone else's church. I would tiptoe quietly from the sanctuary to the restroom and back. I would peer around corners, my heart beating quickly, my head full of fear that I would get caught and yelled at. It was so different when it wasn't my church. Suddenly, I was nervous to explore and scared that I would break something or do something wrong. I felt like an unwelcome intruder, even though I was a little kid with my mom who was practicing the organ. I've talked with many of my friends who didn't grow up in church, and they report back this same feeling when they go to a church for a baptism or a family event. Like intruders. As they enter the space, they look up at the ceilings to see if they're going to crumble and cave in on them. And as a pastor, you can watch folks walk in the door and do the same thing, looking up with terror, just in case God's going to get them today. They decide to just hold it because they're afraid to ask where the bathrooms are. They're mortified when their child cries or makes a scene. Church buildings can be scary when you're not an insider. Over the next 5 weeks, we're going to talk about the 5 areas of focus that United Methodists in Western Pennsylvania organize ourselves around. This is what we understand God is calling us to do and to be. So in Western Pennsylvania, our 5 areas of focus, as United Methodists, we are committed to developing principled Christian leaders, engaging in ministry with the poor, creating new and renewed congregations, promoting abundant health, and dismantling racism. Today we'll start with the one that doesn't translate so easily from the annual conference, looking out over a large geographic area, to the local church where we find ourselves. Creating new and renewed congregations. I've been a church planter working with different church planting efforts in different areas. I've organized church planting efforts in Ukraine, and I help as part of my service to our annual conference. I help as part of the committee that oversees new church plants for our conference. When we as little churches pay our apportionments, our covenant, our covenant to the connection, when we tithe to our annual conference, that money goes to support so many things, and new places for new people is a big chunk of that. We are planting new churches in new places where there isn't a Methodist presence, where there is a need and a call for a new place so that new people may be welcomed in. Jude Urso, many of you know. He serves the United to Serve parish of Monongahela First and El Rema United Methodist Churches. Some of you have been to the Monongahela Church building. It's a grand old building with the sanctuary raised about 30 feet above street level and a full fellowship hall underneath. So it's beautiful, but it's not the most accessible space. They have chair lifts to go up the stairs, but if you've ever done this, you know it takes 2 or 3 people, and it's a little bit dehumanizing to switch from a wheelchair into the chairlift and to have someone carry your wheelchair up and meet you at the top and help you shift back out. It's a 2 or 3 person job. It's great in an emergency or a special occasion, but it's not something you'd want to do every Sunday. Jude realized that there was an assisted living home across the street from the church, and that there were all kinds of neighbors who might be looking for an opportunity to worship, but just physically couldn't get into the worship space. So they got a grant from the conference, from our New Places for New People committee, and they used that money to launch a new contemporary service that's in the evenings. And it's downstairs. It's in a fully accessible space so that all the neighbors can enjoy it. It's a new place for new people. It's who we are. Around the world, United Methodists are innovating with what it means to be the church, planting new congregations and revitalizing faith communities in every kind of setting. United Methodists seek to re-evangelize the world, so that we can reach more people, especially the young and those from diverse backgrounds. By being relevant and vital, United Methodists will touch more lives and draw more people to Christ. This is our understanding of what it means to create new places for new people. In the Hebrew Bible, we see that the Jewish temple was a place that people could visit. It was grand and beautiful, and it drew people in. That's what it was about. People were permitted to enter, not to go into the most sacred spaces, not to climb in the rafters, but to stand on the sidelines and watch. In the Old Testament, there's not a lot of evangelistic talk. The Jewish faith doesn't really have this understanding of going out and bringing new people in. It's very welcoming and inviting, and it draws people in. And our Jewish neighbors would be happy to invite us to join them for many worship moments. But in Jesus and the New Testament, we see a turn. We see a Christianity, a branch of Judaism even in the early beginning days, that is wildly invitational. It is a missionary religion. It travels and grows and moves and lives. It adapts to every different culture, to every tribe and tongue, to every people. We are called to go and tell the others. We are commissioned by Jesus to go out and invite others into relationship with Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. And I think we often confuse this. We think we're trying to get people for the survival of the church, and that's not what we are about. We invite people in so that they may become disciples of Jesus, following in his footsteps and transforming the world in his name. I wonder how visitors feel when they visit our church. I wonder if we could make them feel more welcome, help them understand they aren't intruders, that they're part of the family now. And I wonder what New Places for New People looks like for us. Maybe we know that a new service could welcome new people into this space. A new style, a new form, a new understanding. Maybe small groups could be part of inviting people into relationship instead of inviting them to a space. Maybe there's a need for a new church in our region, and God is calling some of us to lead that effort for something entirely new. God invites all people to be in relationship, to follow in Jesus' footsteps, and to live out their faith. And I wonder how many people use the barrier of being afraid to come into our buildings. And I wonder what we'll do about it. Amen.